Hey, what's up, Spartan Nation? Welcome to another episode of the Spartan Nation Podcast here with your host, Matt Lonsberry, and my co host, Aiden Mulcrone. All right, we are into week 4 now of the college football 2023 season. Hard to believe, Aiden, that we're already a quarter of the way through the season. It still feels like we're getting things kicked off, which in some ways we are, but it does go by quickly. So, yeah, we're going to dig into Michigan State's matchup against Maryland this Saturday, share our thoughts, share the point spread, our thoughts on that, and just the matchup as a whole. Jesse Watson right away jumping in with a prediction. Spartans bounce back, win by 6. So we appreciate the comments as always. Go ahead and join in on the discussion with us in the comment section. We appreciate that. So. Yeah, Aiden, we'll dive right into the meeting here. We did have a question when I did kind of an impromptu podcast on Monday once the news of Mel Tucker being served notice of termination kind of broke. One of the questions that I got that I couldn't really answer was, what's the mood around campus right now, given the state of the Tucker situation and the football team? And I thought you might be able to answer that a little bit better. So I'll give you kind of the floor to open with that. What's the mood around campus these days?
Yeah, I think the mood really hasn't changed a whole lot
Okay,
since, the news of kind of that he was under investigation initially broke. And I think I say that just because it seemed like he was, kind of already on his way out because of, everything going on. And remember, they initially misreported saying he was fired, and then I
sure,
was kind of looking at it like that can't be right, not this fast. And then,
sure.
obviously, 2 weeks later, or not even 2 weeks later, he gets fired, or he's going to be fired once the hearing is done. And I think it hasn't changed a lot since then. Obviously, I have not been in the locker room and heard
Sure.
kind of the player conversations going on there. But I think that definitely has changed. But in terms of the mood in East Lansing and kind of amongst the fan base here, I don't really see a whole lot different. I think I do see a lot of people somewhat optimistic as to who they may hire and kind of
Sure.
looking at different boards of who, or like, lists of who they may hire, but that's kind of really the only difference I see.
Yeah, no, and I think just with some of the video that came out of the Spartan Walk last week, there was obviously a lot of excitement.
Mhm.
Even going into last week's game, obviously it didn't turn out the way Michigan State had hoped, or wasn't that competitive. But I don't think that um, the capacity or the stadium numbers are going to drop significantly over these first few weeks, and that's why kind of getting us back on track and pulling back into the Maryland game. I do think this is arguably the turning point of the season for this year's team, and that's
Mhm.
because it last week was such a disappointment. You weren't able to be competitive against a top 10 opponent, and but you're still you're opening Big Ten play this week. It's a chance to get off on the right foot in conference play. It's a good opponent in Maryland, but one that's not uh, insurmountable or unbeatable. It's not a top 10 opponent like Washington. So yeah, we're definitely this is a pivotal week, and I'm intrigued to see what the team looks like this week. And with that, we'll kind of dive in. Um, this is the 14th all-time meeting between Michigan State and Maryland. You would think, being a conference opponent, that there'd be more, but that's just because Maryland didn't join the Big Ten until recent history here. And Michigan State has really dominated this series so far. They have a 10-3 record against Maryland in the series. Though the Terrapins did win the last one last season, 27-13 in College Park. So it's definitely the history is on Michigan State's side as far as the matchup, but we know kind of the circumstances surrounding this one, and so we'll kind of dive in. Um, Maryland is favored by 7.5. Which that number has grown throughout the week. I think it opened at about a 4 point. Maryland was about a 4 point favorite. That was the opening line, and obviously a lot of the money has gone in towards Maryland and raised that number. And the over/under point total is 52 for the game, which seems a little bit low to me. But after last year, I mean last year's game, the point total was 50, so maybe not too far off, but it does seem a little bit low to me. Just your general thoughts, I guess, on the matchup, Aiden, and what do you expect to kind of see in this one?
Yeah, I mean, MSU came off of a Washington loss last year and played at Maryland. So, and those were two road games, and now you get two home games against Washington and then Maryland. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the questions in the comments is, do you expect to see, some players sit out or players transfer, announce that they're transferring? Um, I I don't know. I think this game, I would say no. For just right now on
Yeah,
Wednesday before the game, I would say no. But I think if you ask me this question Sunday, heading going into the Iowa game, I would definitely give you a different answer. But I agree. I think this is really the turning point of kind of to answer this question. Answer this question with that question. This is the turning point. So if they win, maybe this changes that. But obviously, if they lose, you can expect to see some players maybe sit out or enter their name in the portal just because of kind of just not even the fact that Tucker is leaving, but just everything just surrounding the program right now. It really does feel like it's in a lot of turmoil. And what again, like if you're between 18 to 21 or 22, you definitely don't. It's not the most fun time. I can't imagine.
yeah, and I mean, if you're trying to preserve a year of eligibility, that's where we might see eventually some
Mhm.
guys choose to shut it down. If you've already redshirted, I don't. I mean, I know there are different waivers and stuff you can sign, you can apply for, but I just don't see the incentive to just shut it down. Because you are, I mean, even if you in your head you're thinking, yeah, this is probably my last year here. You, as Kyle says, you're going to want to put some stuff on tape for your next destination. So unless you're preserving that year of eligibility, I don't really know what the incentive might be. Um, we might get into Drew your second question about the backup quarterbacks. Might get into that a little bit later. But for now, we'll just we'll kind of zero in on this matchup. As far as just some numbers, hold on, and I gotta close my door real quick.
That's fine. While he's gone, I mean, I can talk a little bit more about Maryland and that, you know, they're a very similar team, to Washington in terms
Yeah,
of they would like to throw the ball, and they're also similar as a team that they didn't lose a whole lot from last year. They still, have a lot. They've lost more than Washington has, but at the same time, kind of those big pieces um, that really drove them to their 8-win season last year. A lot of all those big pieces or majority of them are still there. So it is another experienced team that they're playing, and then again, it's the start of conference play that is really important, especially heading into you know week 4 where you're still 2-1. So you know that's another important dynamic is now if you go lose to Maryland, then you have 2 losses in a row and you're 500, you're back where you started. Or if you win, then you're 3-1.
yeah,
There you bounce back from it, and you have a little bit of momentum. And kind of we talked about before the season, even before all of this, kind of we saw Central Michigan, Richmond, kind of Rutgers, Indiana as kind of those 4 wins, and kind of where do they find those 2 or 3 extra wins in that schedule to get them to a bowl game. And now we get to you know, maybe Rutgers and Indiana doesn't look as much of a win, but again, you still gotta find four more games in there to find your way to a bowl.
Yeah, I mean, if Michigan State finds a way to win this game on Saturday, you're 3-1. Most people thought you'd lose to Washington regardless. I mean, yeah,
Mhm.
that's not the
Right.
what you would have liked to have been more competitive in that game. But if you're 3-1 through 4 weeks, I think you're in good shape. You got to remember that the goals this year that you and I kind of talked about and laid out, even going back to the summer, we didn't expect this to be a team that could compete for a Big Ten championship. We said you've got to get some positive momentum going again, get back to at minimum 6 wins, get back to your bowl game. I both predicted 7 before we got started here. So you win this game, you're halfway to your goal, and you're only 4 weeks in. And nobody was giving you much of a shot against Washington anyway. So I think you're in good shape. So we'll see what it looks like this week. Obviously, nobody expected the upheaval that we got after week 2 either. So there's definitely layers here, but that's why it makes this week so pivotal. Is because if you find a way to win on homecoming, it doesn't have to be pretty. It's just got to be a W. And then all of a sudden, there's a little bit of confidence in the building again. There's a little bit of, hey, we can do this without Mel Tucker. We don't need, we don't need him as our figurehead. We've got, the rest of the coaching staff. We've got the talent that this coaching staff brought in, and we're going to be okay going forward. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at. There's a few questions here, and then we'll kind of move on to the next segment here. Um, Jesse was asked, how involved do we think Coach D is in game prep? I don't think a whole lot. It's probably maybe a few suggestions here and there, if in certain meetings. But I coming in and not like these aren't the guys that D'Antonio brought here. These are Tucker's guys. So it's probably a suggestion. It's probably, hey, here's a thought. But as far as game planning and all of that stuff, I'm pretty sure he's probably in the back of the room, observing, taking things in, and just giving a little bit of insight or feedback here and there.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think really in terms of his role, I would say it's more kind of with him and Harlan Barnett, more so than the whole coaching staff, just in terms of kind of maybe giving him tips or kind of advice on how to lead the program in terms of just the extra work that comes with being a head coach, and maybe a little bit of some situational stuff, on and off the field, obviously. So yeah, I don't see him being really that much involved in the game prep, as more as it's just kind of mentoring, I guess, in a way.
And then Eggplant asks about the offensive line. You'd hope so. Like you got to hope that you're going to see some improvement. As far
Mhm.
as like some numbers on Maryland, they're in the top 25 in passing offense. A lot of these numbers, it's so early in the season, and most people have played just lower conference opponents so far. But they're ranked 22nd in passing offense at 304 yards per game. Defensively, uh, Maryland ranks 61st in the country. They're allowing 121 per game. So again, that's against opponents that two group of 5 opponents, and then Virginia last week, who I think it wasn't last week, 2 weeks ago maybe, against Virginia, but Virginia is not very good at all. So it's hard to say as far as like really putting a whole lot of stock into those kind of numbers right now, just because of the competition level. But yeah, you've got to hope for an increase uh, in just a better performance from the O line. Um, any other thoughts on this game? You make a good point about the similarities between Maryland and Washington. Obviously, with that 304 passing yards per game, they're trying to air it out. They've got
Mhm.
an experienced quarterback in Talia Tagovailoa, and a rich crop of receivers too. I don't know that they're and Harlan actually talked about this a little bit on Tuesday. I don't know that they have the vertical passing attack that Washington does, but very few teams do. But you're going to
Mhm.
see a lot of short routes over the middle, maybe some bubble screens, and then maybe those intermediate routes too. So it's a diverse offensive attack, but I don't know that they have that verticality, which we'll see if that plays into um, Michigan State's favor at all. We got to see a better tackling performance than we did against Washington. I think that's a huge key because if they're throwing bubble screens, they're throwing short routes, that's okay as long as you come up and you can make a tackle. If somebody catches in front of you and you keep them in front of you and tackle well, then you should be okay as a defense. But after last week's disappointing showing as far as tackling, that's definitely an area of concern. So any other thoughts on this game, Aiden, before we kind of move on and take a look at the Big Ten as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, Maryland is right now is going to be a team that you're competing with and kind of, moving forward, whoever the coach may be, kind of in this. I mean, I feel like it's a little early to say this, but it's going to be another rebuilding stage for MSU in the upcoming, couple of years, just with coach turnover that's bound to happen, that we know is going to happen. So this is a team that you're going to be competing with in the future. So you just it's just kind of you got to prep for it, just the way any other team would. And yeah, I think Michigan State on paper is still more talented. I still I don't think that's like that much of an argument. I still feel that way. But again, it comes down to the execution and the development. And I think Maryland's offense is definitely experienced and is a lot more blended and have a lot more chemistry than MSU.
I agree with you. Um, Obviously, we're going to talk about this game some more as the show goes on, but we're going to move into our next segment, which is Big Ten at a glance. This is where we take a look at the best Big Ten game of the week, the worst Big Ten game of the week, and then some other notables. It should be no surprise what the best game involving a Big Ten team is this week. It's the one that's going to go down in South Bend, Indiana, and that's number 6 Ohio State at Notre Dame. Just a massive game. As far as like games of the year, Alabama Texas is definitely way up there in week 2, but I think this game will give that one a run for its money as in terms of importance and things like that. So just some thoughts on the Ohio State Notre Dame game. We're going to revisit this in our picks section, but just what are your initial thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think this is. I honestly think that this is a more important game for Ohio State than it is for Notre Dame. I think Notre
Okay.
Dame has a pretty tested schedule, kind of just in the future. They still have to play USC and Clemson, and I think there's another one or two other top 25 teams that I'm missing that's on their schedule still. So I think Notre Dame knows they have a tough schedule, but I think for Ohio State, last year it was kind of the Notre Dame game was big, and then they went and played Michigan, and that was kind of their two big games. I know Penn State was kind of in there, but they weren't as much of a test as they are this season. But I think this
Yeah.
is going to really test Ohio State physically more than anything, which is something that they have been known for in the past, but have struggled in the recent years. And kind of they have to figure out a quarterback situation, whereas Notre Dame has really settled in and found their quarterback with Sam Hartman. So I think this is a huge game.
Yeah, no, I think this has college football playoff implications. Obviously, I think it could
Mhm.
have national title implications as well. I'm pretty high on Notre Dame. I do a weekly top 25 just myself, um, and they're up in the top 5 for me right now. And Notre Dame is actually ahead of Ohio State in my rankings just based on what we've seen so far this year. And obviously, this game will go a long way in determining, which one of these teams will be ranked higher. Obviously, after this week, but yeah, it's a massive game, and this is the kind of game that is what makes college football college football. And a game with this kind of stakes, is kind of probably a scarcity going forward once you have the 12-team playoff, because there's going to be such more of a cushion and room for error and room for a slip up. And so, with only four teams making the playoff, um, this isn't quite. I agree with you. This isn't quite of an elimination game, because Ohio State does still have Penn State and Michigan, and they can win the Big Ten. Notre Dame has Clemson. They've got a Duke team that's all of a sudden in the top 20. And they've got USC coming to South Bend later. So it certainly would hurt, I think, Notre Dame more, being that it's a home game and they don't have a chance to win a conference. So it would hurt their chances more. But um, yeah, just it doesn't get much bigger than this one. We'll revisit this game when we make our picks. But moving on to the worst game in the Big Ten this week, there was a few different options here. Nebraska plays. I can't remember who they off the top. I should have wrote it down, but Nebraska plays a Group of 5 team. But there's there's still a little bit of intrigue around Nebraska, I think, just because Matt Rule is so fresh there. Um, and so that makes that a little bit more, maybe a little bit of interest. Nebraska's got Louisiana Tech is who they play this week. But as far as worst game of the week, I have Akron at Indiana, just because I think nobody cares about this game. Indiana's a basketball school.
Yeah.
I think Indiana and Northwestern are kind of competing for the right, if you will, to be called the worst team in the Big Ten this season. And Akron's been a really poor program, even in the MAC for years upon years. So not a lot of intrigue around that game. Indiana is favored by 17 points. So that's, in my opinion, the worst Big Ten game of the week. As far as other notable ones, I would call Michigan State and Maryland a notable game, just because, like I said, it has some ramifications for Michigan State. It's like their season could really go off the rails if you go out and lay another egg like you did last week. All of a sudden you've got major problems. But if you, as we said, if you find a way to win, now it kind of rejuvenates the locker room a little bit. Everything's still in front of you. You're 3-1. And as far as Maryland, they've got some aspirations this year too, to kind of maybe crack that top 3. It's going to be tough to crack that top 3 with Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State. But if you win, winning this game kind of keeps you in that within that possibility for a while. Whereas if you lose this, you're trending backwards again. So that would be a notable. But Iowa at Penn State, that's number 24 Iowa at number 7 Penn State. Going to be a whiteout in Happy Valley. We know that's always a challenge for opponents. Penn State's favored by 15 in that one, which is a pretty big number. This one is also one of our picks that we'll make later. So not just going to spend a whole lot of time on it here, but obviously a huge matchup. What do you think of that one? Just initial thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is kind of a bit. I mean, this is a big test for Penn State as well. I mean, we know Iowa has upset them, a couple years before. So I think, yeah, the whiteout at Happy Valley is obviously, just it looks like a crazy experience, and something that's definitely a bucket list, thing for any college football fan. But yeah, I mean, they have a new quarterback, Drew Aller, who, looks pretty good through 3 games. So, we know Iowa's defense is pretty good and very, very consistently good. So just seeing that, kind of putting him to the test, and, maybe if it's a big win, this could look good, for Penn State, and kind of not scare Michigan or Ohio State in a way, but kind of put them on notice that, they're really one of the contenders for not only the conference, but, contending for a playoff spot.
Yeah, for sure. A couple other notable ones. Big Ten matchup. It's I got Wisconsin at Purdue. Wisconsin a 6-point favorite. They've looked a little shakier than I anticipated, but it shouldn't be, I guess, that surprising given that Luke Fickell's in his first year over there. But I just given his track record and things, I thought they'd look a little bit more solid. But they're a 6-point road favorite at Purdue. And then Minnesota is going to Northwestern. They're an 11.5-point favorite. So just a couple other just notable games because it's Big Ten teams playing each other. So with that, we'll bring it back to Michigan State and Maryland and go into our next segment, which is over unders. This is where we kind of share some prop bets that Aid and I made up, and we discuss it and we make picks as far as if we would go over or under. Aid, why don't you get us started this week with the over under segment?
All right, so I'm sticking to offense for a lot of my over unders, but I'll go Taulia Tagovailoa, so Maryland quarterback, over under 300 yards passing. So
That's
I
awesome.
feel like I feel like I set it a little low, but we'll see.
My first one is Maryland over under 299.5 passing yards. So our mindset was exactly the same. I mentioned earlier, Maryland's averaging 304 through the air so far this season. Michigan State gave up over 500 yards passing last week to Michael Penix Jr. and Washington. So that's a tough question because after getting torched last week, you would think like there's got to be more of an emphasis on being better in the pass game, but this is the story that we've seen for game after game. It seems like when you get into against these teams that can really sling it, Michigan State has really struggled. Against my better judgment, I'm going to go under. I'm going to go under against my better judgment. I still think he'll throw for very high in the 200 range, like 275 and up, but I'm going to try to like split that needle or thread the needle a little bit there. I'll go under, but not by much. And that plays in a little bit to my score prediction at the end, but I'm going to go under, but I don't feel great about it.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over on that. I think it's going to be over 300. It's like a constant nosebleed for the MSU defense, and I think just if they haven't figured it out now, I don't know when they will. I think it's just it's something that that's I feel like fans have accepted, and I'm not gonna keep thinking they changed on a week by week basis. I think it's here to stay until there's some sort of schematic or coaching change or whatever it may be, but it doesn't seem like it changed at all from last year.
No, it definitely doesn't. And obviously we talked about this after Washington, like that's a high powered offense and all that, but like what was the game plan? Because whatever it was, it failed miserably because he gave up a school record in total yards. And so even trying to, like, there's that whole saying about you can't stop them, but you at least got to slow them down or at least got to make it difficult. They didn't make anything difficult last week. So I don't know why I'm picking the under. Maybe I'm just a glutton for punishment, but it's a very minor gut feeling that I'm gonna ride, and so I'll take the under on that. So that kind of covers both of our first ones. So go ahead and give me your second one.
All right, so my second one is on the other shoe. Michigan State passing over under. I set it at 215.
Okay, 215. I'll go over on that. I think I'm last week wasn't a good outing for Noah Kim. But I don't know that. I think defensively Washington is better than Maryland is.
Mm-hmm.
Maryland traditionally hasn't had a great defense. Like I think they might have been solid on the defensive end last year, but nothing special. 215 is that should be doable. If you don't, then you're in big trouble, I think. So I'll go over for Michigan State getting past 215 passing yards. How about you?
Yeah. I'm actually gonna take the under on that, under 215. Okay. So I think yeah. Again, it's kind of the same story of we saw it within the first two games against Central Michigan and Richmond, but looking at the sample size from last year as well, I think that sample size is large enough that I feel like I'm not going to get fooled again. So for that reason, I'm going to take the under. I still think Noah Kim has a chance to have a good game, and I still think even if you have under 215 passing yards, if you get to 185, 195, that can still be a good game if you look at the rest of the picture in terms of game control. Can they complement with the running game? That I think that's another key aspect to look into. But I think MSU does have reliable targets, and the one thing I think their offensive line does well is protecting the passing game. So I think that can help, but yeah, it's just finding that balance between offense, between passing and rushing. But I'll still take the under.
All right. Well, we're in a good rhythm here because I'm going to talk about the run game and with my next
Mhm.
prop bet. Nathan Carter. He went over 100 yards in his first two games. Last week was held, I want to say, at about 48 against Washington. So my question is, does Nathan Carter get back over that 100-yard threshold? So I got the over/under at 99.5 for Nathan Carter rushing yards.
I think I'll actually take the over on that.
Okay.
Just you know, looking at the injuries and everything from the other running backs, it was clear that they didn't trust Jordan Simmons or Davion Prim enough last game to come in and give Carter a breather and some help. I mean, Simmons came in, a handful of plays maybe, but nothing really worth noting. They kind of stuck with Carter, so I think they'll stick with him again, regardless of whether or not Berger and Mangum are back. So I'll give him over 100. So yeah.
This is where I kind of go with the fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I just don't trust this running attack.
Mhm.
Again, I've pointed it out a few different times on pods, since the Washington game, but without Kenneth Walker in the backfield, Michigan State's averaging around 104 yards rushing as a team per game. Now I know, that takes into account like sack yardage and things like that. And so Carter could be over 100, and you take a couple sacks, and so as a team total, you're down below. But I don't trust it right now. I don't trust
Yeah.
the ability of the offensive line to get a push against an opponent that's on their level. We know we heard a lot about the tight ends being better in blocking so far in fall camp, and again, we saw that against some weaker opponents in Central and Richmond, but it wasn't like overly impressive what they did against those teams. And then you go into last week, yes, you're down early, and so you're not trying to run the ball as much. Um, you're trying to sling it a little bit more and catch up, but just haven't been impressed with the production in the outer line. So I'm going to go under for Nate Carter on 99.5 rushing yards. All right, number 3 for you, Aiden.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go on defensive side of the ball for now. I'm gonna go MSU over under 1.5 sacks.
1.5. They they did pressure Michael Penix 9 times last
Mhm.
week. I will say that. So they did get a little bit. They got in his face a few times. He was hit a couple times. Um, and the one thing about Talia, comparing him to Michael Penix a little bit, he's not as tall. I'm not sure he's going to have the vision downfield that Michael Penix does have. So 1.5, I'll go over on that. I'll take the over. I think Michigan State does get a little bit of a pass rush, makes things difficult, and gets home a couple times. Yeah, I'll go over on that.
All right. I took the under on that. I think,
Okay.
kind of for some of the reasons like you said. I think just their passing attack, they want to be quick with the ball, get some pressures on Washington, but you saw Penix, he was able to get rid of the ball quickly, and he found guys open downfield. And I think, you know, if you're playing, short or intermediate, I think that helps a little bit in terms of, those quick hitting throws to get the ball out quick. So I think I'll take the under on that. But you look at the MSU defensive line, and you saw again first two games it looked like a massive improvement. Even last game you could tell that there was still a lot more depth than there was last year.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's still hard, especially against this type of offense.
Yeah, no, I get that. I just again, maybe just that vision thing, and again, gut feeling here. So I think they'll get home a couple times. Just throwing up what our audience thinks a little bit here. All right, so I'll move on to my number three, over under. This surprised me a little bit. I was looking at some stats for Michigan State, and in terms of receiving yardage, Christian Fitzpatrick actually has the most receiving yards for Michigan State so far this year, which is interesting because obviously a lot of that came on two catches. He had I think a 72 yarder against or a 70 yarder against Washington, 72 yarder against Central Michigan. So definitely a big chunk of that came on just a couple catches, but we might see a little bit more of him this week. And so I'm going to go with Christian Fitzpatrick over under 50.5 receiving yards this week.
I think I'm gonna take the under. I don't want to rain on your parade, but I think I'll take the under. I feel like all of this is just raining on the parade, but but at the same time, I think we saw Jerron Glover in week 1. We saw Trey Mosley come back in week 2. Fitzpatrick has made some big plays downfield. I can still see that happening, but I think I'm going to take the under here. I think whether or not it's right, I think they're going to try to run the ball more this week. I think Maryland's rushing defense has not always been the greatest, and they do have a decent pass defense. So I think they're going to try to run the ball a little bit more, but at the same time, anything is possible. But I'll probably take the under on that.
You're getting roasted in the comment
Yeah,
section
I
a little bit,
know.
Hayden, but that's all right. I mean, hey, we're here to call it how we see it. We're not here to drink the Kool-Aid. We're here we call it how we see it. So, this one is tough because Fitzpatrick has been boom or bust. It seems like he's got 6 catches for 164 yards. 2 of those catches probably was about 140, maybe a little bit more of that. So. It is a tough one. I'll go over. I don't think he's gonna pop off for like a huge game or anything like that, but I think Michigan State does need to settle on some guys at receiver. Like, I mean, rotating guys is great, but like you've got to find your go-to options out there. So maybe he's one of those guys. I'll go over for this week. Don't feel strong about that, but again, I think he does. He's a bigger target. I will say that. And I think that can be utilized this week. So I'll go over on Fitzpatrick. Okay, number 4 for you, Aiden.
Yeah, so my number 4 is Malik Carr over under 3.5 targets. Or I'd say catch. I'll say catches.
Catches, 3.5 catches. Okay.
Yeah.
This plays into my next one, but 3.5. Well, is he going to catch the ball? I guess is my question, because he's had a few drops this year. He's been targeted more. So I'll go over on Malik. I'll go over. I think I do think he's going to play a factor in this game, as I'll get into with my next over under. So I'll go over. I think he gets 4. I think he gets 4 this week.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm going to take the over as well. So I think just with, what happened to Tyneil Hopper, obviously he went into surgery after the game. Looked like
Yeah.
it looked like a pretty bad injury watching it live as well. So
Yep.
hopefully he's okay, and hopefully, wishing him a speedy recovery. But I think, again, we always have talked about, ever since, Jay Johnson has been the offensive coordinator, that he wants to utilize that tight end more. And I think, you know, this is the opportunity when you have, young receivers, you have a quarterback that needs to get going, especially off of a loss where you only scored 7 points with, the backups
Sure.
essentially. So, I think, Carr, I know someone in the chat said he looked, he was visibly upset last week. I think, this is the answer, is to get him touches. And I think he can answer that. And, in it, whether or not they win, I don't know, but he can help the offense this week, I believe.
Yeah, a couple things, like you need your best players to step up and play like your best
Mhm.
players. And as far as like just ability, raw ability, Millie Carr is one of the better players on this team. And I would I would tend to say that it's been a bit of a disappointing start for him, just in the production standpoint. I do want to point out Drew's comment about it being a Spartan show and giving us hope. I will remind you, Drew, with that last week, my final score prediction was, I think, 38-27, and Aiden's was 38-35. So
Yeah,
if we gave you a little bit of
that's
hope
all the
there,
that's all the hope you need.
that, that's all the hope we had, and that bubble got burst pretty emphatically. So give us a little grace on that. We're still licking our wounds a little bit from last week's pretty bad score predictions. So
Mhm.
with that, I'll move on to my next one. It does involve Malik Carr. I've got the over under on receiving touchdowns at 0.5. So essentially, is he going to have a receiving touchdown this week?
I'll take the over on that. I
Okay.
think he can get one, especially the that red zone offense. You know, I part of this is not even him. Part of it is, play calling and kind of quarterbacks making the reads. But you would kind of expect, in the red zone offense,
Yeah.
they use Hopper, the past couple games in the red zone, and took Carr out. But you know you gotta expect to use him. He's a large, just human being.
Yeah.
He's large, and whether or not you line him up, hand in the ground on the line, or whether you line him up outside, I think he needs to be utilized in the red zone pretty much either way.
Yeah, no, so I'll throw this at you too, because we heard a lot in fall camp about he's improved as a run blocker.
Mhm.
You get down in the red zone, it's tough to run the football down there because the field's condensed. And it's just easier to defend the run. And to your point, it's Tyneil Hopper who's been in the game down there. So are you concerned about that at all, as far as like, was that just lip service about Malik Carr being better as a run blocker?
I mean, again, it's kind of hard to tell, and again, it's not always on him, because you look at that whole offensive line, kind of that running unit as a whole, and you're like, it makes you question. It makes you say that
That's
about
fair.
everyone. I think so. I think that's definitely a hard thing to really get a grasp on, or to accurately kind of evaluate.
That's fair. So for the record, I'm gonna go over as well. I think Malik does find the end zone this Saturday, with the receiving touchdown. So we're both over on that. So yeah, well, that's on the record. We both expect Malik Carr to have a good game this Saturday. And frankly, as I said, Michigan State needs it out of them, because you need your best players to step up and make plays in big games. And this is a big game for Michigan State. All right, we've each got one left. Go ahead and hit me with yours, Aiden.
All right. So my last one is MSU over under 20.5 points. So can
Okay.
they get to 3 touchdowns or not?
All right, I'm going over on this. This is
Okay.
obviously nod towards our final score prediction, so I won't give you the exact number right now, but I do have them above 20 and a half.
Okay. I'm taking the under on that, so
Okay.
we can leave it at that.
All right, Aiden's still drinking the haterade, Drew. So Cameron's got them over 20 and a half. Keys to wisdom over on points. He sees a high scoring shootout going down in East Lansing this Saturday. All right, my last one here. Kyle with the over on 20 and a half as well. My last one here, and I'll bring up Drew's question from before. Does Caden Hauser play in this game? I've got an over under for Caden Hauser passing yards at 49 and a half. Now, let me set this up a little bit because there's a couple different ways you can look at this. You can look at it as Noah Kim doesn't play well, and so he gets pulled, and Caden Hauser gets his shot. Or Maryland kind of pulls away like we saw Washington do last week, and then Caden gets in the fourth quarter in scrub time. Or Michigan State pulls away and has a big lead in the fourth quarter, and he comes in and cleans up in scrub time. So there's a few different ways to look at this, but the number stays the same, 49 and a half passing yards for Caden Hauser.
Well, I think also with Tucker out, we will get a depth chart now. So maybe
Oh,
we'll get a depth chart, but who knows? So but I'll take the under on that. I think they're gonna ride it out with Kim, especially just the last few the last few weeks. I think if it gets ugly, yeah, I think Caden could be a change, or if they get shut out for a second week in a row, or the first team offense gets shut out for a second week in a row, which I don't think will happen. Then maybe there's a change to Hauser, but I'm gonna take the under. I think they're gonna ride it with Kim.
I'm with you on that. I kind of threw that one in there just to spice up the segment a little bit, but
Yeah.
I don't really think we're going to see a whole lot of Caden Hauser because I do expect this to be a competitive game.
Mhm.
I do think Kim is the guy that the coach has settled on, and so you're going to ride with him unless it really does look ugly early. Maybe you make a change, but I think again, first game of the Big Ten play. Um, Stuff is like your goals are still ahead of you, so I think they ride with Kim. I'm with you on that, so I'll go under as well. All right, and with that, we will move on to place your bets, which is the segment where we look at the best games around the country this week. I did go back and jot down our records from the first 3 weeks for games that we've selected in this segment. Um, After week one, I went 2-4. In week one, Aiden was 3-3, and then week two, I was 3-3. Aiden was 4-2. And then last week I went 3-1, and Aiden was unfortunately 1-3 last week. So we're both at 8-8 for the year. So I'm not a betting man, but if I was, I'd be still be even. And I don't know if you've made or lost any money this year, Aiden, on these type of picks, but you're at 8-8 as well. So
Yeah.
we're right at 500 going into week 4 of the season. And with that, we'll get going here. So first game on the docket is centered around a team that has completely taken the college football world by storm, and that's number 19, Colorado. And they are traveling to Eugene, Oregon to face the number 10 Ducks. Oregon is a huge favorite in this one. They're favored by 21. We know Travis Hunter is not going to play this week. He's the dynamic two-way player for Colorado. He plays corner and wide receiver. He's not available after taking, I will say, a dirty hit against Colorado State. It was a dirty hit. So thoughts on this game? It's a huge number, Aiden. Colorado has been the story of college football so far this year, but they're finally facing a team that everybody sees as a college football playoff contender. So what are your thoughts?
You said the line was at 21.
That's what I had it at. Did you see it
Okay.
somewhere else?
No, I was just asking.
Okay.
I'm gonna take Colorado. I'm not taking Colorado to win, but I will take them to cover that 21. I think they can cover that three scores. Watching that game, I mean, I watched that Colorado State game all the way up until whatever 2:30 in the morning that it finished.
Yeah,
That was
I would.
very entertaining. I
Yes.
was I was impressed with them week 1 against TCU. I thought they, had a bit of a battle against Nebraska, and they came back and rallied against Colorado State, and what people thought would be a blowout was, you know, arguably the most entertaining game, of the day, if not, the most. So I think, whether or not you like or hate Coach Prime, I think you have to acknowledge from watching the first 3 weeks that all of his players play hard for him,
Yeah,
and they give 100%, and they have some good schemes. And looking through some of the coaching searches for MSU, I think there could be some potential offensive coordinator on Colorado that
yeah,
might get interviewed, but we'll see. But yeah, I think what they have in place is pretty good. I still think Oregon is, you know, head and shoulders above them. So I'll
sure.
pick Oregon to win, but I'd say Colorado can cover.
Okay. Yeah, no, it does seem like there's two separate categories when it comes to people who have an opinion on Deion Sanders in Colorado. There's a group that is just absolutely tired of hearing about this story. They say they're overrated. They haven't beaten anybody. That's one half of it, and then it does seem like the other half is just all buku's in. They can't wait for, and obviously America is very interested because that game did like a 9.5 million viewer rating,
Mhm.
and it kicked off at 10 o'clock Eastern time. So people are interested. Like you can't say anything about that. I'm in the camp of I'm really enjoying it. I like it when programs kind of come out of nowhere. I've always been a fan of that. Colorado does have some history in college football of being a good program, but they've been really, really poor over the last 2 decades. And I just think Deion Sanders is entertaining. Like I can't. That's the best way I can put it. He's an entertaining guy to watch and to follow.
Mhm.
With that said, um, I just don't think they have the horses to go into Eugene, and I think Oregon's going to smack them pretty good this week. And again, this isn't me being a hater because I've enjoyed the show, I've enjoyed the ride. Kyle says it with Hunter not being there, he's their best player, he's their best offensive weapon. They can't run the ball, which concerns me. So I'm gonna. It's a huge number to swallow, but I'm gonna swallow the 21, and I'm gonna pick Oregon in this one. So different. We've picked different teams
Yeah.
on the first game here. So moving on, we'll stay out west, and this is number 22 UCLA at number 11 Utah, and Utah is a 4.5 point favorite. So how do you see this one playing out, Aiden?
Yeah, I mean, Utah kind of had, some a trap game early against Baylor, and then, you know, they've kind of worked their way through. But they're a really physical team. I know Dante Moore is the starting quarterback for UCLA now,
Yeah.
obviously a Michigan native, so also a 5-star recruit. But I think I'm going to take Utah. That's Dante Moore's first big road test as well, and Utah is physical, and that's where they're going to beat you. And I think UCLA is a little more open and kind of spread stuff, and yeah, kind of what you think when you think West Coast football. But Utah has really taken advantage of teams like that in the past, specifically a team like USC. So for that reason, I'll take Utah on the points.
Okay. You make a good point with Dante Moore, just because he's super talented, but he is a true freshman. Um, Utah is a tough place to go play a football game. So what gives me pause about taking Utah to cover here is that they're kind of a grinded out, punch you in the mouth type of team, and they don't score a ton of points. And so when you think about UCLA and a Chip Kelly team, it's kind of the opposite. I mean, they're physical too, but you think Chip Kelly, you think offense, and so I've gone back and forth on this one. I do think you make a good point with Dante Moore making his first start in a game, a road environment like this. But I'm gonna go UCLA here. Don't feel strongly about it, but it's more about the 4.5 points that I'm getting
Mhm.
by taking UCLA. I do think Utah wins. I think it's a tough, close game, but I'll take UCLA to cover in a really close game. So 2 games, and we've been on opposite sides in both so far. So that takes us to our third game. We've got 6 tonight. And so game number 3 is number 15 Ole Miss at number 13 Alabama. First time Alabama's been out of the top 10 since 2015, which is incredible if you really think about it. But they lost to Texas. They looked dreadful last week at South Florida, a team that went 1-11 the previous year. So Bama's got some problems. They seem to have settled on a quarterback now. They're going back to Jalen Milroe, who started the first 2 games for them, and they've got a ranked conference opponent coming to Tuscaloosa this week. Bama's favored by 6.5. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there is the angle of kind of the Lane Kiffin versus Saban. I wouldn't say rivalry as much of it's kind of a fun rivalry,
Yeah,
per se. But, you know, bringing Milroe back, I think that's huge for Alabama because I didn't think he was terrible in the Texas game. I thought he played all right. He made, some mistakes, and Texas
sure.
made him pay. And any good team will make you pay for their mistakes. And I think Alabama's gotten away with it for quite a long time, and now they're starting to see that a little bit more. But I'll still take Alabama to cover. I still think they'll cover and win by at least a score. They're back home, obviously, and that Texas offense is hard to defend, but so is that Ole Miss one. But I think
Sure.
just a little bit more. I think we know what we're getting with Alabama at this point defensively. That they can stop Ole Miss's offense, and then it's going to be up to Alabama's offense to figure that out. I think Milroe should have been the starter last week as well.
I'm with you. Yep.
Yeah, I think he is the guy who won the job, and obviously bringing Tommy Reese over, and he brought his quarterback Tyler Buckner. But I think Milroe gets it done, and Alabama covers.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Milroe, he's limited as a passer. There's no doubt. I think he has good touch on the deep ball, but he struggles to read defenses, and so there's definitely limitations there. But he's one of the best athletes on the field anytime he steps out there, and I think Tommy Reese and Nick Saban and Alabama, they need to utilize his strengths more, and that's like put him in some more read option situations and make the defense choose. Okay, are you going to defend a 5-star running back, or are you going to defend arguably the best athlete on the field, and just put teams in conflict, all night with that is what, again, who am I to tell Nick Saban what to do? But like that's my thought anyway. Is utilize his strength, which is his legs. But I'm with you too. Like we've seen, I think Ole Miss has been a solid program under Lane Kiffin, but they don't ever seem to win these games
Mhm.
when they get them. It doesn't seem like it. So I'm going to go Alabama as well. I'm going to take them to cover the 6.5. If we don't see if Alabama loses this game, that's like a world we haven't been in almost 2 decades, like since Saban was hired,
Right.
because all of a sudden they're 2-2, and it's like, what is going on in Tuscaloosa? So it's hard for me even to envision that right now. It's been 15 years that Bama's been like in the upper at the very top of the sport. It seems like. So yeah, I'll take Alabama to win and cover as well. So that moves on to our fourth game, and we're going back to the West Coast. This is a game that Michigan State fans should pay attention to, and it's number 14 Oregon State at number 21 Washington. And that's because Oregon State's got a head coach named Jonathan Smith, who I think is an option for the folks in East Lansing once they're ready to start their conducting their coaching search, he would be a name that I have circled. I know he's a name that you've got circled,
Yeah.
and he was one of the guys in your candidates piece that you wrote yesterday that I published. So yeah, Michigan State fans, if you're looking for a game to watch between two ranked teams this week and a potential coaching candidate, Oregon State is a 3-point favorite at Washington State this week. So how do you see this one playing out?
Um, yeah, I mean, you said Oregon State's a 3-point favorite.
Oregon State's favored by 3.
I honestly, I'm gonna go Washington to cover and win outright. I think
Washington
just
State.
or oh Washington State. I'm sorry,
Yes.
I totally didn't see.
No, that's okay because that
Yeah,
obviously there would be some
yeah.
confusion there.
Yeah,
So
I thought you said Washington originally, but
Washington
I
State
think
is ranked number 21. So
right.
for reference.
Yeah, I mean, I think offensively, this is going to be a really good game. This is obviously the two Pac-12 teams being left behind
Yeah.
in the realignment. But I watched the Washington State Wisconsin game. I thought they played pretty well. I thought while Wisconsin struggled, I did think Washington State did well. I think Oregon State is another team to look out for that, similar to Utah, that's kind of a blueprint for them where, they don't have the greatest athletes, but they do want to be physical and they really want to, just kind of play between, in the box and kind of play between in the trenches and everything like that. So I think that's big. So I'll go Washington. I'll go Oregon State to win and cover the 3 points. I think, yeah. I was impressed with DJ Uyunglele at I think it was the first game. I know they played San Jose State, but still, I thought he did pretty well.
And I'm with you on this one too. I saw this game referred to as the Pac-2 Bowl because it's the only two teams left in the Pac-12 after this season, which I thought was kind of clever. And let's play a violin for the Pac-12 here. But anyway, yeah, I do like Oregon State. There's something again. It's probably my whole thing about teams that kind of come out of nowhere who have really struggled for a while. That Colorado's one of those teams, Oregon State's one of those teams, but Jonathan Smith has done an excellent job there. It is his alma mater, so if Michigan State does go that route, it'll be a tough to pull him out of there. But I'm definitely intrigued by this game, and I do think they go on the road and get the job done, and I'll take them to cover as well. All right, a couple Big Ten esque games. I mean, the last one, obviously, you probably have a good idea what that is, but this next one is the Big Ten matchup in Happy Valley. It's number 24 Iowa at number 7 Penn State, and Penn State favored by 15 in this one. So, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Iowa to cover, but I'll pick Penn State to win. I think watching the Penn State Illinois game, it definitely took them a half to really get that offense going, which isn't new with Penn State, especially under James Franklin. So I think that's going to be the play there. I thought Iowa has seemed to have a better offense, but defensively they're still really stout. So I think it's not going to be super high scoring. But I do see the ball, moving between the 20s a lot. Just not a lot of touchdowns, maybe some field goals and stuff, but nothing too crazy. But yeah, I'll pick Iowa to cover, but Penn State to win.
Yeah, this is a tough one because Iowa does have a way of just mucking up games and making it slugfest. And, Penn State's got a good defense too. So you would think that Iowa's got to really play out of its mind defensively to have a chance at the upset. Just it's hard to say how many points Iowa's going to score. And I also know Iowa's got some guys out for this game as well. So a tough game. It's a huge number, it seems like. Just because of Iowa's historically, their defense is so good. But yeah, I'm with you. I think I'm going to go Penn State will win the game, but that's a big point total to swallow. So I'm going to go ahead and take Iowa to cover that as well in Happy Valley. All right. the main event this week is our final game to predict, and that is number 6 Ohio State, a 3-point favorite at number 9 Notre Dame. So Aiden, round us out here with our picks of the week, with the biggest one of the week.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick to my guns here. Like I said with Utah, and like I said with Oregon State, I think the more physical team is gonna win, and I think that team is Notre Dame. I think
Okay.
they're gonna cover and win outright. So just watching them, Sam Hartman definitely looked like an answer
Yeah.
that Notre Dame hasn't had in a long time, and yeah, and obviously former Michigan State commit Audric Estime at running back as well. He's done really well, just kind of knowing his role in that offense. And Notre Dame's always had a good offensive line, and they do again. Defensively, same thing. Marcus Freeman's a defensive coach. Their defense looked really stout. Um, yeah, I think for that reason, I think Ohio State, there's too many question marks with the quarterback play, kind of, you know, Notre Dame in a way is kind of a Michigan-esque team. So do they, can they handle that? Is, Ohio State pretty much has to prepare for Michigan
Sure.
all off season to kind of catch up for the ground they've lost within the last 2 years. And, this is a perfect opportunity for them, especially, on the road since they go back to Ann Arbor this year
Yep.
to compete for the Big Ten. So I think it's not enough yet. I really haven't seen enough from Ohio State and just kind of Ryan Day's teams to answer the bell for a game like this. So I'm going Notre Dame.
Yeah, no, I think you make an excellent point with it's almost a little bit of a preview for that last week, and
Mhm.
we'll see like where Ohio State is on the measuring stick, because I do agree that Notre Dame and Michigan are similar in a lot of ways. I actually called my shot on this game way back at Big Ten Media Days, and I said Notre Dame's going to beat them. Notre Dame's going to upset Ohio State in South Bend this year, and that was before I even knew that Notre Dame's offense would look as good as it has. I knew Sam Hartman was very good, and I expected him to be a huge upgrade for the Irish at quarterback. But they're really running the ball well as well this year. It's a balanced attack. Their receiving core, I think, is underrated. Defensively, I do think Ohio State has improved from years past. I think they were better last year than years before, and they've improved upon that again this year. But until we talked about Dante Moore going into Utah earlier, not the same situation because Kyle McCord's not a true freshman, but I also don't think he's as talented as Dante Moore either. So this is his
I
first
agree.
time in a hostile road environment, and the team that he's going up against is very good. Marcus Freeman is a defensive guy. He's going to have those guys ready to go. And so I think it's a tight, competitive game. But I'm going with the Irish as well to pull off the upset here and kind of reintroduce themselves to the college football world with a big upset of Ohio State this week. So I think we might have agreed on the last four. We
Mhm.
disagreed on the first two, so there's gonna be some separation potentially between us this week. Again, so
Yeah.
far this year, I'm 8-8, Aiden's 8-8, so we've been neck and neck so far this year. So we're looking forward to seeing how all of these games play out. It's definitely a DVR week for us, Aiden, because we're going to be in East Lansing covering the game. But I'm looking
Right.
forward to getting back. I'll probably watch a game once I get home from covering Michigan State, Maryland, and then I'll be a lot of Sunday will be spent catching up on some college football as well. So with that, we will wrap up tonight's show with the game that you all care about the most, and understandably so, and that's Maryland at Michigan State. Aiden, you've been called a hater tonight. They say you're drinking the haterade, so hit us with your final score prediction.
Yeah, I mean, kind of what we've talked about, just the question marks. both sides of the ball on offense and defense, I think plays into Maryland's advantage in terms of, their passing offense versus MSU's pass defense. I think Maryland's passing defense versus MSU's kind of pass offense, and just MSU kind of struggling to get that rushing game going against those better teams. I think that's really tough. And yeah, so for that reason, I picked Maryland to win. I said it was 28-20. That's kind of why I set the over under at 20 and a half. I think
Okay.
just seeing where that offense, goes from, basically getting shut up. They got shut out for 3 quarters. So where does that offense go from here? Obviously last year, they went to Washington, they fell short. Then they came back home against Minnesota, and then they got shut out, and then went
Yeah.
to Maryland, and then it was like, I think it was 28-13 was the final score, and it's just kind of getting the wheels turning again. So for that
Sure.
reason, yeah, I'd say 20-28 Maryland wins.
Okay, that's a little bit lower scoring than I anticipated, but we're in a similar mindset, I think. The thing that intrigues me is that when opening lines came out, Maryland was only a 4-point favorite, and that number got bet up to the 7.5 that I saw it on ESPN today. So again, there's a part of me who does think that this could be a rallying cry for the team, but I thought that last week, and it went very much the other direction. Um, so I've got Michigan State covering the spread, but I still am going to go with Maryland to win the game, and that's the new spread here this week. I've got Maryland 30 and Michigan State 23. So I've got the Terrapins winning by a touchdown. Again, I just after what we saw last week, a lot of the same concerns that we've seen in the past, and so I can't breathe hopium into the comment section tonight, Drew. After what we've seen, they've got to go out there on the field and prove it to me. But I don't think that this is an unwinnable game. I do. There's a path. There's a path here for Michigan State to
Mhm.
to get the W. I just can't call for it on my official prediction as of this time. But I think we will see a competitive game on Saturday.
Yeah.
With that, uh, I don't think there's not too many questions here in the comment section. So I think we'll call it a night. We're well over an hour. So hope you guys enjoyed the show. Um, just as a public service announcement, as again, we try to react to games on Sundays and then preview the next one on Wednesdays. That's the formula that we kind of have going forward. So hopefully, Lord willing, we'll be back on Sunday, and we hope you guys will join us. And we'll see what the storylines are coming out of this game between Michigan State and Maryland. I will say this about Michigan State football so far this year: it hasn't been lacking for storylines.
No.
That's for sure. So we'll see what kind of excitement we get this Saturday, and we'll see you guys on Sunday. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.